The Grow Louisiana Coalition was founded in 2014 as an advocacy organization to educate the people of Louisiana about the importance of the oil and natural gas business here. We want to tell people and show them how intertwined the oil and gas industry is to Louisiana's economy, but more importantly, we want to show how the oil and gas industry is a part of the lives of 260,000 Louisianians in the state. Today's the fourth annual Oil and Natural Gas Industry Day. It's our biggest one yet, where the people of the industry show up. And they show up so our elected leaders can see our faces, can hear our stories, and learn about what the priorities are and how we can grow the oil and natural gas industry in Louisiana and grow Louisiana overall. Right now, one of the biggest problems facing the industry is that job growth in Louisiana in oil and gas is stagnant. The number of people working in the industry isn't growing, whereas in other states like Texas and Oklahoma, other places that we may not have already thought about in terms of New Mexico or Pennsylvania, there are oil and gas jobs growing every month. But in Louisiana, we're holding still. And that's something completely different than what's happened in the past. We have to take steps in making our tax system more predictable, in making our legal system fairer, that creates then jobs that can come to the state. And when those jobs come here, they're the best jobs around.
Why is Louisiana losing jobs?
Because companies are making choices. There's more competition today for oil and gas exploration than there's ever been before. 20 years ago, there may have been 4 states that were actively competing for oil exploration and natural gas exploration. Now there are 15. And those states outside of Louisiana know the types of jobs that oil and gas can bring, and they're aggressively pursuing them. Louisiana is stuck in neutral. And the only way that we can move forward and add the jobs we need is if we become more competitive and create reasons for people to invest in Louisiana, not reasons for people to leave.
We have land rigs and barge rigs. The land rigs are back to 80% utilization with the spike up in oil prices. But the barge rigs are still stacked on the banks. So it has to do with the coastal erosion lawsuits, and they're stifling business.
What does that mean for jobs?
Well, our barge rigs in 2014, we had 260 employees, and today we got 35.
What needs to happen?
The lawsuits need to go away. It's just a frivolous money grab by attorneys.
People do not want to invest, and if we're not drilling, and we're one of the largest employers in the state, if we're not drilling, then there's fewer people working. Right now in coastal Louisiana, all our southern parishes that are being severely impacted by the few rigs we have running. We have today 4 rigs running in 7 rigs running in South Louisiana land, okay, which is unheard of. And we only have 3 rigs running in South Louisiana inland waters, where we normally would have 15 to 20 on inland waters compared to 4. And where we have 7 rigs, we normally have 30.
There is a lack of bills to promote lawsuits against the oil and gas industry. I think we've been able to squash most of those as best we can, and but the real harm is not what's happening here at the legislature. It's what's happening in the courtrooms.
Both the legacy lawsuits and the coastal lawsuits are very detrimental to the industry. You know, I hear from oil and gas executives all over the state that one of the reasons why they hesitate sometimes to do business in Louisiana is because of the lawsuits. And of course, with the oil and gas industry happening and exploding all over the country, they have many choices on where to invest their dollars, and we are putting Louisiana at a disadvantage right now because of these lawsuits.
What kind of a threat is lawsuits posing for the industry and the jobs?
It's significant. It's very significant, and I would say it's in the top 2 most pressing things facing the industry in Louisiana right now, the other being the price of oil. And if you look at what's happened since 2013, when the first lawsuits were filed against oil and gas businesses in Louisiana, by a couple of parishes, you'll see that the price of oil has steadily risen. But the level of activity in exploration in Louisiana, and in particular South Louisiana, has fallen off dramatically. And whereas you look at places like Texas, which is seeing remarkable growth and return to investment in exploration, Louisiana is trudging along, and we can't have that.
What needs to happen?
We need a more predictable tax system. If companies are going to invest in Louisiana, they have to be able to know what that investment is going to cost them, because then they can plan out the types of jobs they need, how much they can pay, and how big the investment can be. If they can't predict what the costs are going to be, just like any business, they're going to go somewhere where they can. The second thing we need to do is we need to stop suing each other. We cannot sue ourselves into prosperity, and we have to be able to change the legal system to make it fairer and to look for opportunities and solutions beyond the courtroom.
Louisiana plays a key role in our nation's energy production. It's number 2 in crude oil production. It's number 4 in natural gas production. Leads the nation in combined production of both oil and natural gas. It has 92,000 miles of pipelines. It has shown that it can permit and build infrastructure. So it's a key part of our nation's energy. So the policies in Louisiana will likely have a big impact on the policies in Washington. So that's why we're encouraging the policymakers in Louisiana to encourage the innovation over regulation.
As superintendent of St. Charles Parish Public Schools, we have many opportunities and possibilities for our children when we collaborate with business and industry, parish government, the sheriff's office. Together, we can be successful.
What kind of impact has the partnership with the oil and gas industry meant for the students in your public schools?
The oil and gas industry inform the school system of what it takes, the skills, the dispositions, and the knowledge that it takes to build a future workforce. We take those recommendations and we make them happen in our schools each and every day.
Is that translating into jobs for your graduates?
That the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that our students demonstrate are translating into jobs in our community and beyond.
When you grow oil and natural gas, you grow Louisiana. This industry is part of our education, it's part of our future, it's part of our professional lives. Today, there are 260,000 of our neighbors, friends, and family working in Louisiana's oil and gas industry. That's enough to fill 3 Tiger stadiums. If this industry was its own country, it would earn more than 100 countries do around the world every year. And that's from Dr. Lauren Scott in the World Bank. But as various interests fight for every dollar they can, Louisiana Oil and Natural Gas right now is producing $2 billion every year in state taxes. In fact, according to Dr. Scott, he believes that the oil and gas business is the only industry in Louisiana, and maybe the only industry in the country, that gets charged and pays taxes on its total sales in Louisiana. Whether you make money or you don't, the industry is paying taxes on the sales and revenues that they create, in addition to paying the corporate and income taxes and all the other assortment of taxes that every other business in the state pays every day. When you total those numbers up between 2006 and 2016, that equals $14 billion just for the opportunity to do safe exploration and work in oil and gas in the state of Louisiana. Because of that, we can pay our teachers more than places like Mississippi. We can hire more sheriff's deputies in our parishes. We can earn more than twice the average salary for a Louisiana worker. We can also invest in the coast. But we're stuck in neutral. As other states see a rapid increase in investment in exploration and production, the number of people actually working in Louisiana is stagnant. Our tax structure is changing constantly. So if you want to invest in Louisiana, you can't tell if it's a good decision or a bad one. Our citizens keep getting reminded daily through television ads and billboards that we should run to a courtroom with empty promises of suing ourselves into prosperity. What is true is that with all the cards stacked against the industry, we continue to provide billions in tax revenues and hundreds of thousands of jobs. We cannot let our leaders take Louisiana's oil and natural gas industry for granted. And when we were down in Houma last week talking to the South Central Industrial Association, a very good partner of ours, they asked us to come up and talk about today. And the message we shared was, in order for our leaders to hear us and see us, we have to show up. And today, everybody here has shown up, and our leaders are seeing us. About an hour ago, we were meeting simultaneously with LOGA, taking high-ranking executives to meet with the top leaders in the legislature and the Speaker of the House. We had the chance to share some information and discourse with the Undersecretary from the Department of Energy. All the while, LaMoga and others are working to pass legislation to protect the people of the industry in the state Senate. All of that's happening right now, and we're sitting here having lunch. But we showed up, and we're going to keep showing up. And we need to show up here, and we need to show up in our parishes. We have to let our leaders know, and the people we live with, that companies should be able to invest in Louisiana because of our productive, positive business climate, and that we must have a tax system and legal system that is fair, predictable, and impartial. So thank you for showing up today, and thank you for showing up every day. They're seeing our faces, they're hearing our stories, and that's what we need. So thank you.
I am the proud superintendent of St. Charles Parish, and I'm very honored to be here to speak on behalf of St. Charles Parish, but also every public school system in this state, to share with you the opportunities and the possibilities for our communities and for our students. When I was asked to speak today, I started thinking about what is my connection to oil and gas, and I realized very quickly that I have a deep connection to the oil and gas industry. And this has helped me mold my leadership style and the way our school system exists within a community surrounded by business and industry. I am a child of a parent who worked in the industry. My dad worked for Shell Oil in Norco literally until the day he died. I'd like to share with you some memories of being a child of an employee at Shell Oil, and also make the connection for you for building our community and our school system. I remember that my family attended Plant Day faithfully each year. It was a time for employees and families to come together, to eat together, to have fun together, and to also visit the site to get a greater understanding of the work that was done at Shell. I recall my dad was encouraged and supported to further his education by Shell. A couple of times a week, he would travel to LSU at night to earn a special degree in engineering in order to advance his career. And that was a win-win situation, not only for my dad, but for Shell. I also reflect on the time of his premature death at the age of 48 while on vacation. The concern and the support that was demonstrated by Shell's competent staff to assist my mother to make some immediate decisions and some long-term decisions about her future and the future of myself and my 3 brothers. So what does this have to do with developing a AAA school system? A school system that has labeled itself AAA, that is focused on academics, the arts, and athletics. These experiences helped build leadership that honors the school system, but within a much bigger picture. We understand as a school system that we operate as a family, and we collaborate with all members of our community in order to be successful. Led by board members, 4 of them who are here today, 4 of 8, and I know you're going to say this, 8 board members, what do you do when there's a split vote? We have no split votes. Our board understands their role as a board, and they understand how working together for the future of our children is supposed to be. Industry leaders, parish government, and the school system work together supporting each other. and knowing that what benefits the school system benefits our entire community. We also invite the community into our school system to experience our learning organization, and we visit and we learn from industry leaders to prepare our students to become our future workforce. You saw our world-class robotics team. We have engineering programs, instrumentation tech, and process technology, to mention just a few of the opportunities for our students to learn and to become part of your industry. We encourage and support continuous improvement, continuous learning, and innovation. And we celebrate successes together because we know that our successes are the community's success. We're fortunate to have experienced lots of successes through the passage of bond issues and being on top of state rankings. We passed bond issues to eliminate portables, to enhance safety and security, and most recently, to construct a $35 million performing arts center in St. Charles Parish to offer our students, thank you, and you're all invited, to offer our students a comprehensive education. And we do experience challenges. When we experience those challenges, we support each other to achieve a greater understanding and to move forward to a brighter future. These things are not by accident. They are very intentional, but they are the result of strong leadership, collaboration by all of our partners, building trust, and community support. This is our story of success in St. Charles Parish. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here today. When Gifford asked me to speak, I don't know what kind of crowd this was going to be, so I might have some negative thoughts here that you just take back home with you and just know the pain that everybody's going through right now in this downturn that we're in. But yes, I'm in a third generation workover rig company. My grandfather started Pelican Well Service in 1956. My dad started Montla Workover Well Service in 1984. And then we sold our family business to a publicly traded company called Key Energy Services in 2007. So for about 2 years, we worked at Key, and we kind of ran the assets that we sold to them. And after a couple years, we were kind of a bad marriage, and wasn't working out exactly how we wanted. We approached Key and asked if we could buy the barge portion of our what we sold them back. And well, it seemed good at the time, but then looking back now, I wish I didn't have those barge rigs. But anyway, workover rigs are built specifically to work on existing wells. So drilling rigs drill new wells. That's investment into the state. Drilling new assets for all companies. What we do is we're those truck-mounted, fire truck-looking rigs that you've probably been behind on the interstate, and they're taking you forever to get around it. Well, those rigs, they move from well to well to well, and they just do workovers, maintenance, recompletions. So they basically keep the oil company's production to levels where they want it to be. So, just the difference between workover and drilling. So we currently have 40 rigs. 26 of those rigs are land rigs, 3 are platform rigs that work on offshore platforms, and we have 11 barge rigs. From 2010 to 14, we were blessed to be one of the fastest growing service companies in the United States. Then the downturn hit. And with a lot of debt, we've had a great relationship with our bank that has worked with us to try to help us get through this difficult time. But for almost 4 years now, most of the service companies in the United States have been treading water. The rundown to $26 a barrel sent 4 of the publicly traded competitors of ours, Key, Basic, Forbes, and C&J, into Chapter 11. That represents 2/3 of the workover rigs in the entire United States. just to give you a feel for that. The downturn has been bad enough to Louisiana, then you throw in the coastal erosion lawsuits into the mix, and it's just a perfect storm. Today, all prices have rebounded to near $70, and our land rigs are back working at about 80% utilization, which is good. But there's something else going on. We only have one barge rig working out of 11. Why is that, you ask? In the past, $70 oil, our barge rigs have been 90% utilized. So what gives? It's the lawsuits. Everywhere I go, I hear it. Customers just want out of Louisiana. They're sick of the lawsuits. I was in a customer's office in Houston last week who is probably the largest taxpayer in Louisiana. Since these lawsuits have surfaced, they have spent billions of dollars in other states where Louisiana used to represent over 60% of their production. It is now less than 10% and no longer a focus of their annual budgets. If they are able to find a sucker to buy all their properties in Louisiana, they will. But who wants to inherit these lawsuits? Texas has no legacy lawsuits. Texas has no coastal erosion lawsuits, and they're 10 times the size of Louisiana and 1,000 times the number of wells as Louisiana. So, they're such a business-friendly state, that's where people are going. And, inland water barge rigs, it's a specific niche market. Barge rigs based in South Louisiana, both drilling and workover, handle jobs all the way from Corpus Christi to Mobile Bay. That's pretty much the area of the coast, and it's all inland waters, barge work. The only other barge market in the world is Nigeria. So where, you can move land rigs to West Texas, or you can move them to Canada or wherever, you can't move barge rigs anywhere except for Nigeria, and I'm not going to Nigeria. The domestic barge market is totally dead. I don't see it ever coming back. In 2005, there were 7 competitors and 19 rigs in the workover barge market. And today there are 2 competitors, one of which is an oil company that owns his own rigs, and only 15 total rigs in the market. That's workover side. Only 7 of those 15 have remained working through the downturn. So that means 8 have been sitting there rusting in the salt water. Banks will not be loaning any companies money anytime soon to put investment dollars back in these rigs to rebuild them. So they're going to need to be cut up and scrapped. So the market that we once had with all those rigs is going to be gone. This is important to our state because unlike land wells where royalties are paid to private landowners, the majority of inland water wells are state leases where royalties are paid to the state of Louisiana. This has been Louisiana's cash cow, or golden egg. In conclusion, businesses must go where customers are, and customers are running out of our state. All of our growth since 2014 has been out of state. We opened up a rig yard in Laurel, Mississippi with 7 rigs. We opened up a 4-rig yard in Alaska, and we just recently opened up a 5-rig yard in West Texas. Our state needs tort reform so bad, it's pathetic. Last week I received a text. I'm going to attempt to show you guys this. I blew it up, and you're not going to all be able to see it, but you'll understand it. These things go viral, so you may have received it as well. But it says, how you know you're in Florida, the oranges. How you know you're in Georgia, the peaches. And how you know you're in Louisiana, the billboards with the lawyers. It's really an embarrassment to drive in our state. I got that, somebody from Texas sent me that. I know the state has revenue and budget shortfalls. How about a highway beautification tax? For every lawyer billboard, the state gets $1,000. Just throwing that out there to our legislators. And back to the coastal erosion lawsuits, it's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's a right or wrong issue. It's a huge lawyer money grab at the expense of the goose that laid the golden egg. And I'll leave you with this. Geese are migratory birds. They're flying west. Thank you.
It is great to be here at the Oil and Natural Gas Day in a state that is the #2 producer of both oil and natural gas. Louisiana is home to 18 refineries, accounting for nearly 1/5 of America's refining capacity. It is home to an offshore oil port that can offload the largest crude oil tankers and can receive up to 2 million barrels a day. It's home to 3 of our storage facilities that make up the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Louisiana is the number 2 oil producer in the country, number 4 natural gas producer, has 92,000 miles of pipelines in the state. So you can see that much of America's energy production occurs right here in Louisiana. And what occurs to the energy policy here in Louisiana affects the nation's energy policy. And as the Undersecretary of Energy, I'm here to affirm that this is absolutely the case for energy policy in Washington. Now, if we look back at the history of that policy, there is one huge lesson to learn, both for Washington and for all 50 states, including Louisiana. The lesson is this: the answer to our energy challenges is not more regulation. The answer is more innovation. It is the policy of this administration, of this Department of Energy, to encourage innovation over regulation. Now let me ask you a question. Isn't it time for the government to stop burdening people and businesses with more regulation? Well, that question answers itself. When it comes to energy, the problem became especially bad during the 1970s, when our leaders in Washington were imposing more regulations on oil and gas production. They added price controls and other restrictions, and not surprisingly, domestic energy production fell. We had overregulation, we had a ban imposed on oil exports, and our leaders convinced themselves then that the energy mess they created was permanent. I recall serving as Chairman Billy Tozan's chief counsel on the House Energy and Commerce Committee back in the mid-2000s, and we were having hearings on peak oil. Witnesses would come in and say, we found oil, all the oil that there was to find, and it was too expensive to produce the oil that was left. They convinced themselves that even if we could find more energy reserves, it would simply be too costly or harmful to the environment to produce. And as a consequence, what happened? We had less energy at higher prices. We had higher manufacturing costs and fewer jobs. We had greater inflation and fewer opportunities to realize the American dream. And all of this was completely unnecessary, every bit of it. Truth be told, we never had an energy shortage. What we had was a shortage of imagination. We had a loss of confidence in our ability to innovate. The good news is that outside of Washington, there were people who were true realists and understood this perfectly well. They chose to do the most American thing in the world. They chose to innovate. Now, much of this innovation took place in our national labs, but it didn't stop there. The states themselves became laboratories for new policies. In state after state, taxes were reduced and regulations made simple and transparent, providing both the incentive and the freedom to innovate. And with innovation came a dramatic revolution in technology. I was talking to a group this morning, and I was reflecting that the national labs had helped develop the hydraulic fracturing technique the improved buffering techniques that go into hydraulic fracturing, and multi-directional drilling. Technological changes that came from primarily the private sector and the national labs were coupled with the market demands for natural gas and oil, and Congress actually got it right for the first time. They amended the Safe Drinking Water Act to ensure that EPA did not regulate hydraulic fracturing. Congress let the states decide which states were going to regulate hydraulic fracturing. And what happened? With the combination of the technological advances, with getting the policy right and market conditions, America now leads the world as the net exporter of combined oil and natural gas. Who would have thought in our lifetimes that somebody would be here announcing to the rest of the world that the U.S. leads the world in oil and natural gas exports? Now, from fossil fuels to renewables, the supply rose, costs fell, efficiencies increased, energy diversity expanded. And that same technology revolution that was producing more energy abundantly and efficiently and from a wider range of sources than we ever thought possible was also making our fuels cleaner. From 2005 to 2017, while the economy grew, the United States led the world in carbon emissions reduction, cutting them by 14%. And from 1970 to 2016, our GDP rose 253%, vehicle miles traveled rose by 90%, total air pollution plummeted by 73%. So the lesson is clear. When we replace regulation with innovation, we replace artificial scarcity with genuine abundance, and we eliminate the false choice between economic or energy progress on the one hand and caring for the environment on the other. We break through these mythical limitations and trade-offs. We reject the old energy pessimism. We embrace what Secretary Perry is rightly calling the new energy realism. Last year, this approach planted its flag firmly in Washington, thanks to President Trump and our administration. And so finally, Washington is on the side of energy production. It is on the side of every energy worker and every energy family in this country. It is on the side of serious policies that make sense in the real world. And so today, the President has pushed through his tax reform and regulatory reform. He has signed off on new pipelines. He has removed draconian oil and gas restrictions on responsible exploration. He has supported clean coal technologies. He has sought to reinvigorate nuclear energy and support R&D efforts that advance renewables, storage, and energy efficiency. And so today, America is closing in on true energy independence. America is on track to become a net exporter of multiple fuels and the technologies that produce them. And yes, as I mentioned, America is exporting natural gas. After spending billions to construct LNG import facilities to address a predicted domestic gas shortage, the U.S. natural gas producers are now converting what was once import facilities to export facilities. In early 2016, the first large-scale LNG export terminal in the lower 48 states opened right here in Louisiana at Sabine Pass. Today, the U.S. is exporting LNG to 27 countries on 5 continents. Today, we are exporting to India and its enormous market of more than 1 billion people. On March 29th of this year, an LNG shipment from Sabine Parish arrived in that country. And coincidentally, just last week, the Secretary and I were in India to talk about how they can open up their energy markets to U.S. interests. We formed a natural gas task force to advise them on what regulatory policies that they need to have in place, what incentives they need to have in place so that our U.S. energy companies can go and not only help produce, but bring the technologies to bring new sources of power to the people of India. And they were very appreciative to find out that I was from Louisiana, the state that brought them their first LNG shipment of liquefied natural gas. And their state-run gas company has entered into a 20-year contract with Sabine Pass. So for the next 20 years, Sabine Pass out of Louisiana should be providing the people of India clean-burning natural gas. And let us never forget that when we export energy, we export freedom. We help liberate our friends and allies from dependence on nations that do not share our values and that wield their energy resources as a political weapon. Now, what does that mean? So long as our current policies prevail, no nation will hold America or its friends hostage for its energy supply ever again. And by exporting our energy technology and knowledge, the United States can help countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia harness more energy to improve people's lives. Now, there are some who aren't too happy with us for exporting our energy or this amazing technology. Some oppose production on fossil fuels, which today comprise 80% of world energy usage and continue to produce carbon emissions. We have yet to achieve breakthrough technologies on battery storage or energy storage. And studies show that we will be dependent on fossil fuels in the year 2040. 77% of our energy will still come from fossil fuels. So to those who oppose us, I ask, what will you say to unemployed Americans who will find great paying jobs as our energy exports boom? What will you say to some of our world's poorest people when American energy lifts them out of poverty and want? What will the opponents say? This administration believes that technology will make renewables competitive with other fuels far sooner than we think. But it still will be decades before renewables comprise a critical mass of world energy consumption. And given that reality, the choice for every nation is clear. Will it reduce emissions by starving itself of fossil fuels, destroying jobs and businesses and any hope for the future? Or will it reduce them by making these energy sources cleaner, ushering in a new era of growth and opportunity for all? Will it choose regulation or innovation? Every state in this country faces this same choice. It is the hope of our president, it is the hope of our administration, and it is the hope of Secretary Perry and our Department of Energy that every state makes the right choice. It is our hope that they choose innovation every time. And it is my fervent hope today that the state of Louisiana continues to do likewise. Thank you very much for your commitment to this issue, and thank you for inviting me here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Undersecretary.
In my district, particularly 21, that has portions of Terrebonne and Lafourche, all of St. Mary and part of Iberia, it is the #1 industry there. The vitally important. With the downturn in the market, it's been an incredible hardship in our area, particularly for the service companies that support the oil and gas industry. I am 100% supporter, and I think the oil and gas industry is a great industry and that we need to support it.
The oil and gas industry is the economic engine for our state. It always has been and it always will be. And so we want to make sure that Louisiana is in a good position to continue to put our people to work and to benefit from the revenue that happens, from putting people to work in the oil and gas business.
Man, it's the best day of the year if you're in oil and natural gas, because we have a record crowd who's here, all people who represent the industry, and they're here talking about why the industry is important to them. That's all we ask for.
If people have questions, like more information, what should they do?
Go to growlouisianacoalition.com. You can sign up, give us your email to become a member. It's free. You can learn all about good things happening in the industry and see actual stories of people working in the industry today.
Freeze right